Welcome to In Focus on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11. I'm Eric Marsh, Executive Director of WCTV. Glad you're able to join us for this In Focus program where we're going to be speaking with members of the Ivy Tech community. Now, before we get into that, I want to remind you that you can and should get yourself registered to vote. It is that time. The November general elections are coming around. So IndianaVoters.com is a place where you can go, check, see if you are registered to vote, and if you're not, you can get your registration done right there, very easy. We'll also put up a number to the Wayne County Clerk's office, so you can call there if you have some questions about getting registered to vote. Also, you can, if you have not done it, and if you've been thinking about becoming a school board member, you can get signed up now. Those petitions can be turned in anytime before August 20th is the date to the Wayne County Clerk's office. You can pick those up, get the signatures that you need, and get those turned in. And on next week's In Focus program, we'll be talking with 4 of the 5 superintendents from Wayne County Schools. Find out what they think board members should be about, what people should be looking for, what they're looking for in potential board members for their areas. And not all of the areas in Wayne County do their school boards all match up and do exactly the same thing. So we want you to be aware of that. That's going to be on next week's program. But this week, once again, we are not in the WCTV studio. We are hanging out in the Chancellor's Lounge, I think somebody called it.
I would never call anything the Chancellor and Lounge. I don't. That's a really bad. That has a lot of bad connotations.
We've got Chad Bolser here with us. Chad, thanks a lot for talking to us.
No,
again.
Thanks for coming over. We're really happy to have you.
Last time I was over here, we were talking about Ivy Tech's strategic plan. That was probably 6-7 months ago. You were kind of rolling that out. Right. What are the beginning numbers telling you as how this is going?
Well, we had our 6-month celebration just this
after 6 months.
And as you all you would have to do is be around our President, Sue Ellspermann, for just a short period of time to know that if anybody thinks we wrote a strategic plan that we want to put on a bookshelf and collect dust, it is active. And we speak in strategic plan language. We reference it all the time. Mm-hmm. And we check up on it. So 6 months in, we took a little bit of temperature, not only from a campus level perspective, but also from the state level perspective. Things are going really well. We've seen the trajectory. We have exceptionally aggressive goals. As we talked about, the main goal for us, right. And it's a goal that matches up with the state's needs, but also locally is this big 50,000 credentials annually for the state. Number. Well, yeah, it's a strong number. It's a strong number for 2 reasons. Number one, it fits into this idea that Indiana really has to achieve 60% of its adult population needs to have a credential beyond high school. It's just really mandatory in the market that we're in today. And so that meets that need. We're going to be the one. We're not the only provider. We have wonderful higher education partners, sure. But we're going to be the driver of that. 50,000 makes sense annually if we're going to reach that number. And the second part of that is it really does impact. It doubles what we're doubles what we're doing today. Mm-hmm. And we know that a lot of times in this business you get caught up in let's get some folks in and your enrollment and some of the things. But our job is to produce completers and produce completers for our area and for the state. And so it really focuses in on what we need to do.
You talked about the strategic plan. You said you're talking strategic plans. We talked real briefly about it about 6 months ago. I think there are 7 points to this that are really important. Why don't you kind of run through those pretty quickly?
Well, and that's so our first one is student success. In ensuring that our students are successful. And it sounds really simple, but getting a student from one term to the other, ensuring that we meet their basic needs. We've had a lot of great things come about that. The Ivy Cares program, ensuring students do not get tripped up by that one little small area that affects their education and ultimately doesn't get to a completer. Goal 2 is about enrollment. It's really simple. We cannot achieve the 50,000 completions without students. And so we grow that funnel, and so we're looking for a lot of unique ways to get to that number to continually expand access to education. We have our goal 3 is about completions, and we specifically line out strategies to ensure, we had some great numbers. We actually as a state surpassed for our goal for year 2 in the first year of our first 6 months, our first year of measurement for completion.
You completed your goal for year 2.
Yeah, so in President Nelson language, that means that we're really ramping things up.
Okay.
And here locally, we outpaced our goal by 100 completions. We're well on our way to our 1,200 goal in 5 years. But that doesn't come by just crossing your fingers and hoping it happens. There's very specific strategies. Goal 4 is about workforce alignment, and this idea that we as a community college can go in and meet the workforce needs. We don't want to produce completers that aren't going to have jobs. Mm-hmm. We have this interesting phrase, move from 12 to 22. This idea that we're going to move people in the right direction, get them to the degrees that they're going to be able to transfer into great workforce and job opportunities. 5 is an internal. It's about being a great place to work, and we feel like
that's got to be important.
Oh my gosh, it is, and we have very, very specific metrics around that. You are going to hear from some great employees here today. We love to recruit and retain the talent that's here, and that's what really Goal 5 is about. We really, Goal 6 is about resource development. Mm-hmm. College is big business, and we want to make sure that we utilize the taxpayer dollars and all the resource development, the fundraising opportunities. We want to do it the right way. And then 7 is about our community. Can we reach into our community and address some of the absolute needs that we know are going on there? Can we be a partner for our community? Dr. Jessica Kate is working on the pathways to employment from Belden. Very specific, driven idea. That's what Goal 7 is about, is for us to be the really great community partner and to meet our community where they are.
And I had a chance to talk to Doug very briefly when he was at a place here, and their numbers in that program that you're talking about at Belden continue to ramp up, continue to grow.
Look, we've got to have some creative solutions for the workforce issues that we have. There's no doubt about it. If we are the community college we need to be, and if we're the state's engine for that, we've got to be partners, and we've got to be as creative as possible. And we've got to have people, the great employees and the talented employees we have, we've got to lend them, so to speak. We've got to encourage them to go out, partner up, and really address those things. We're super proud of our folks, and we're super proud that in this goal, we're trying to really be the community college for our area.
You all are stressing that word, community college, and in a couple of ways talking about, one, working more closely with the manufacturers in your individual regions, because you go from one end of the state to the other. Absolutely. And what this state looks like and what the needs are not the same. So you can't have a big top-down statewide idea.
No, we went up and met with Randolph County as a part of our service area and Wayne County. And even in the difference between those two counties, there's a lot of difference. We could not have a strategy in Hamilton County that is the same as in Fayette County. Mm-hmm. You have to be in the community. And guess what? If you're going to be in the community, you got to know the community. And you've got to be an active participant in this. And so one of the things that I think we stress to all of our employees is this is about our economy right here. The workforce, if we are going to answer the challenging question of our time, is how do we get the workforce to continue to drive the economic engine? If we are going to be able to answer it, and it is the question of our time. If we're going to be able to do it, we got to know our community, and we got to be in the trenches.
You know your community. You know that part of your communities is there are no jobs here, and the jobs that are here are fast food, minimum wage, and they're wondering why they should invest in higher education
Sure.
for a job that's going to pay them $10 or $12 an hour?
Well, a couple things. One, and you saw me start to lean forward when we started down this conversation, because number one, I think that is, look, the data around workforce just isn't, that it isn't there. There are plenty of opportunities. I often say this: you tell me what you want to make, you tell me the sector you'd like to make it in, and I'll let you know what kind of training you need for a job in this area. Now, there are certainly limitations to that kind of statement, but I'm telling you, here's what I know is true, is that the state of Indiana, through Next Level Jobs, through the Workforce Ready Grant, all the things that we have going in terms of scholarships and investment in terms of our business community and our philanthropic partners, here's what I know, is that people are dying to get people, and really, honestly, they can come and invest time and energy. We can help them get it paid for. No debt. And again, we used that phrase before, move from 12 to 22.
What is that?
Okay, $12 an hour job. That, at times we think of minimum wage. Now that's not minimum wage. Obviously, it's a little bit higher. But we've come to the kind of understand that between 10 and 12 is kind of the entry point of wages here. Right. And I'm certain that there's somebody saying there, well, I know somebody that's only paying $8.50, and I'm sure that's absolutely true. But that's kind of the entry point. Think about this. We can give you a list, and we don't have time for me to read the entire list of jobs that are available at $22 an hour, but you cannot, in this area, but you cannot be unskilled. As we talked about healthcare, there is, and look, there are on-ramps and off-ramps and up-ramps to these sort of things, because Reed Hospital, all the long-term care facilities, they need folks that are trained and skilled at particular certification levels that can move up in the ranks. And here's the great part about it is, once we, and I think, again, talking about Belden, the Belden Workforce Training, one of the really cool parts of that is a local company investing in someone and saying, hey, listen, if you're willing to get training, we're willing to invest in you. And I think that's in so many sectors, we're dying to get folks in and trained and experienced and continue on with the training that is necessary, the certifications that are necessary to do the work that is desperately needed.
There is a belief that this is just about pushing people to college. We heard that for a lot. We have to push everybody into college.
Yeah, absolutely. And we could have this conversation about what's the value, what is that, what's the return on investment? Here's what I know, is there is tons of literature that says there's a lot of work. We have a wonderful transfer as a junior program. You come in here, get your academic feet under you and move on. Price point is good. You can move on and transfer as a junior. And we think that that's a really great program. But we also know that the certifications, and you hear our language is really, really specific. We talk about completers. We're not saying come in and get a bachelor's degree. We're not saying come in and you got to work for 8 years. We're saying in 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, 18-week programs, all different kinds of, give us 6 months, give us a year, and we can get credentials and completions, industry recognized completions, certifications, so that you can attain the job that you want to. That's not your old, hey, drive folks to college speech. That is, we want folks, and so many of our students work right now. They are a person who is right now in a job working 8 to 5 or 8 to 7 or working overtimes on the weekend, and they're saying to themselves, if I stayed here 10, 15, 20 years, I would gradually move up the pay scale. The fact of the matter is, what really drives folks is not longevity, it's training and education.
Okay. We're going to come back in about 6 months hopefully you'll let us back through the door.
Absolutely. Well, let me tell you, the great news is we've seen some growth in enrollment. We've seen growth in completions over the first year. We're fired up about that, and we cannot wait for those year metrics to come along.
Okay. We're going to take a break. Talking to Chad Bolser. Thank you very much for spending some time with me.
Thanks.
I really do appreciate it.
Thanks for being here.
We're going to hear from Phil Quinn, who's going to update us on some other information here at Ivy Tech. Take a break, and we'll talk to Kim Thurlow about manufacturing matters as In Focus continues on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV, Channel 11.
Hi, my name is Phil Quinn, Marketing Coordinator for Ivy Tech Community College, Richmond and Connorsville. We have some limited openings for viewers to take part in our preschool program. Ivy Tech Early Childhood Program offers anyone in our community a convenient, affordable preschool option Mondays through Fridays, 8:30 to 11:30 a.m. Our preschool is accredited, and our philosophy begins with your child starting to engage in a classroom setting. Enroll your child today for Ivy Tech Preschool. Call us at 966-2656, extension 1145, and ask for Kathy. Ivy Tech is your answer for those looking for high-quality preschool.
Hello, I'm Melissa Vance with the Wayne County Area Chamber of Commerce, and I'd like to invite you to join me for the next Chamber Chat, where we will be speaking with Jack Cruz from the City of Richmond, Ed De La Paz doing a look ahead with Ed, and then we'll end with Jeff Huffine from our Buy Local Committee, talking all about Wayne County weekends. Join me on Tuesday evenings, Channel 20 WETV at 8 p.m.
For many kids, just showing up to school is a challenge. Staying through graduation is even harder. So at communities and schools, we do just what our name says. Our staff brings a community of resources to meet each student's needs right in their school, doing whatever it takes to keep kids focused, so they see what we see, a bright future. Join in at communitiesinschools.org.
I'm Al Bledsoe.
And I'm Ron Chappelle, chaplain for Vietnam Veterans Post 777. Our guests on our next program is Harold Evans and Gary Franklin, both who have just exceptional knowledge about the Huey that we're trying to bring to Richmond.
We had this opportunity to get a Huey, so it was pretty clear cut. Let's go for it.
Watch us on WETV Channel 20 at 8 p.m. Monday evening.
Welcome back to In Focus on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11. I'm Eric Marsh, Executive Director of Whitewater Community Television, and during this show we are spotlighting Ivy Tech Community College and all the different areas of it. We'll be talking with Scott Caldwell, who's the President's Award winner, coming up in just a little bit. Right now I have with me Kim Thurlow, who has been a guest on In Focus a few times. Talking mostly about the program Manufacturing Matters, but Manufacturing Matters continues to evolve a little bit. But for those who maybe don't know what Manufacturing Matters is, they weren't here when it started, give us a little bit of that history. That's a program that started 6 years ago? 5 years ago?
You're giving us a little bit of lead time. It's about 4 years. This October, we will be 4 years actually in operation, but it took about a year to build that, so we're close. Manufacturing Matters is an initiative that came about due to manufacturing in our area recognizing the need they have to develop skills. There's obviously a skills gap. We all talk about it. We all hear about it. So we went through a series of work sessions and strategic doing sessions that allowed those manufacturers to identify specifically what is that skill. You know, we talk about it, what is it, so that we can address it purposely. So through a series of meetings and commitments, those employers locked step and said, we know it's a competitive market, we know we have limited resources here in terms of manpower, but we need to do something. A rising tide floats all boats. So we identified a credential, a nationally recognized manufacturing credential that they all would support, and then we put together a resource, a stakeholder group as I call it, of community stakeholders who would support the effort. So those employers who commit to Manufacturing Matters agree to value the credential for those folks who complete the program. They agree to give them an interview. They agree that if they hire them and retain them for 90+ days, they pay back a portion of their training fee so that we can scholarship a future participant. That said, the employers don't pay for the training. It's funded through the state and through some community partners like chambers and economic development offices who see the value of this for everybody. So we have engaged adult education, we've engaged the high schools, so it's a collective effort to really raise skill sets. And the folks who go into the program need to qualify. So it's a selective program. They need to be committed to playing nice in the sandbox, as we call it, working well in the classroom, being involved, being engaged. They need to pass work keys testing. They need to commit to the training schedule. We have a time clock in the room, so we are simulating a work environment. And they need to agree to and pass a drug test. And they also need to agree to random drug testing, random to the class, not to the person. But we're trying to simulate the work environment. So once folks go through either 6 or 10 weeks of training and commit to that kind of discipline, that shows a lot of evidence to the employer that they're highly employable.
You went through a few cohorts of this, got a few people in the program, got a number of people completed in the program, get many people hired from the program?
Oh yeah, yeah. And early on, and again, this was 4 years ago, the marketplace was a little different at that time. So we had an open market program, and people were very interested in it. We have highly engaged partners still, and we were able to. I think we had over 350 people apply. We've had 72 complete. Our placement rate in manufacturing is over 72%, and their average wages are 11 to 14 hours. Now, we have dollars per hour. Now, we have a few folks who have gone through even the first cohort that are still employed in manufacturing and are near $19 to $20 an hour. So we've definitely see that it does have success. Currently, the market is fairly small. We have a very low unemployment rate, which you want to have. And there's a lot of employers doing direct hiring. So the open market classes in the last year and a half have not been in demand.
Manufacturing. People hear that term. How has manufacturing changed, and how has the skill set that the employer is looking for changed from what it was 15 years ago, 20 years ago?
Well, it's changed dramatically, and I think there's actually two main focal points for the Manufacturing Matters Initiative. One is training, which we've been talking about, and the other really is to change the perception of manufacturing. So I'm glad you asked me that question, because people drive by these facilities a lot, they don't go in them.
Correct.
And to really understand them, and I'm in them quite often, the game has totally changed. So it's no longer what you would consider manufacturing in the day was, dumb, dirty, dangerous. It's not that. It's well lit, it's high tech, it's highly engaged. It takes a lot of team skills, it takes a lot of critical thinking skills. And as I tell kids, like when I talk at the high schools, there are so many careers in manufacturing. I mean, from production to engineering and quality and supervision and research and sales and marketing, there's all of the different factors that you can support in manufacturing. So really, really quite different.
When you talk about the kids, when you talk about being in high schools, have the manufacturers that you work with been able to think about and recreate programs that can bring high school students in quickly as they come out? Now, we talked to Chad Bolser a little while ago. He said a lot of this is about certification, not necessarily about degrees at the end of the day, but people needing some additional skills. Some of the concern in this area is that, are those skills getting passed along to our high school students who really have no interest in the full 4-year college thing? Is there a working relationship that is good between the schools, the high schools, and the manufacturers in our area?
I think it continues to evolve, and through some of the stakeholder activity that we've had with Manufacturing Matters, I've seen evidence of that. And there are some examples, just like the local Wayne County Chamber does the senior job fairs each year. And our partners from Manufacturing Matters and other employers are highly engaged in that. So anything they can do to show the students what career options they have. We also do activities that are highly coordinated with the high schools each year around Manufacturing Day in October. So we have the seniors come out and go to these facilities and take a tour. Maybe they get a t-shirt, maybe they get a pizza lunch, but they get to hear what it's like. They get to walk around and actually see the facility. So I have seen, and I don't think it's all due to Manufacturing Matters, of course, but there's just in general a much more collective, coordinated effort around connecting those two audiences. And we actually had a coordinated meeting between the Wayne County schools and school leadership and the Manufacturing Matters partners, and it was very informative. I mean, you could just see the understanding taking place in the room to understand, wow, I didn't realize the schools had these limits or these restrictions, or this was what it was like to manage these students. And likewise, the schools were looking at the manufacturers going, I had no idea that your environment was like you're telling me, or the opportunities are what you're saying, or the credentials you were looking for. So we're beginning to have more and more open doors, I think, in conversation to inform both.
Is the community understanding the difference, or I'm going to ask it a different way. How does the community begin to understand the changes in manufacturing? Because this was a manufacturing community for a long period of time, and then it waned a little bit, but you're seeing that come back with the Manufacturing Matters partners, with Blue Buffalo coming in, and even Sue Elsperman. I had a chance to hear her speak a couple of different times, and she has that engineering background. She was in manufacturing, and she described it almost like you did. Manufacturing's different from the days when it was dirty and I was in it. How do you get the community to understand the difference now, since they can't see it on a day in, day out basis? What do we need to do for that?
Well, I think having them feel like they have opportunities to engage in manufacturing, to touch it, feel it, see it, is very, very important. So we've talked about things like expanding the Manufacturing Day activities. It's been very focused on schools. Well, maybe we should expand that, and perhaps through the Manufacturing Matters partners, spread those community tour dates out during the year and have them available for community members and leaders and parents who want to go into those facilities to see what they're about. So I think that's one idea that's come about. So really, employers that I've found, the manufacturers I've found, want to figure that out. And so I would love to convey that to the employers, that we have an interested community. They want to understand what you do and why you do it. And you just learn something every time you're out.
Manufacturing Matters really has not had a class for a few months. You mentioned earlier in our conversation, and we're talking with Kim Thurlow from Ivy Tech Community College. You mentioned earlier the low employment rate that we have, which is a good thing, but also that Manufacturing Matters, because of that, is beginning to make some changes. The focus maybe is a little bit different. Talk about what comes first, Elite or Skill Up Awards. We've talked about two of these things, so what's the first piece of this pie?
Well, we have continued to evolve the effort, and we've expanded with Manufacturing Matters a lot of the social media and marketing, trying, I think, to address your last question, I should have mentioned that, to involve and educate the community more openly. So the promotion of videos that you can find at the website at manufacturingmatters.info. You can find under the partners those videos that are produced that highlight how they operate, but also the social media, engaging them in all those community activities. Those things have really helped expand interest in Manufacturing Matters. So it's evolved the perception side of it, but to your point, the training side has not been as in demand. Employers are hiring directly, and there's a very small amount of folks that are actively seeking that would add this credential before they got hired.
But manufacturing is still important.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And it's a great multiplier to our economies. And it is, for Indiana remains per capita the largest manufacturing state in the country. So this is our legacy and this is our future. And as I mentioned earlier, there's so many careers in it that it's really the way to go. for so many folks. And even those students who are not sure if they want to go on to a 2-year or a 4-year educational pathway, if you went through and worked with a manufacturing company, chances are they're going to develop you and you're going to have those educational opportunities potentially paid for by that employer as you go forward. So I don't think it's an either or, it's maybe a this then now question.
Talk about your $1.28 million grant. Do I have the figure
You
close
do.
on my notes?
You do. This was very exciting. So the Department of Workforce Development in the state of Indiana has done 3 rounds of what they call Skill Up grants. So they've been each year, as you would imagine they would be. And the 3rd year was last year for this grant award. And DWD has focused this last year's funding very, very, very specifically on applications that could present that they had an employer-led network. The state recognizes the fact this needs to be employer-led. Employers need to lead the effort in developing the workforce. So through the evidence we have, because of Manufacturing Matters effort these last 4 years, we were able to present that in our application and talk about how highly engaged our stakeholders were. Not just the partners, but also the chambers, the economic development offices, the schools. We actually had this whole network kind of already creating momentum in our part of the state that we were able to present in that application. So we were very excited, very blessed to get one of the largest single awards for our network in the state of Indiana. So yes, 1.28 million is the correct amount.
And it is designed to do what specifically?
Well, what we did was, it took about 8 months to complete the application process that DWD put out. I think there were 95 different applicants statewide. And we had to go through a very specific set of steps to ask those employers what it is that they would be willing to do that would be innovative. DWD said this has to be innovative. It has to be employer-led and it has to be innovative. So again, having that momentum we already have through Manufacturing Matters allowed us kind of the platform to have these discussions. And what was great was 2 main sectors in East Central Indiana for employment are manufacturing and healthcare. So the Elite Network actually has 15 employers who represent 10 are manufacturers and 5 represent healthcare over 7 counties. So we have quite a grouping of folks, and what we did was identified through those dialogues and those work sessions innovative strategies that they could all consider embracing. So we have 3 within our application. Okay. And that's not to say we won't develop more. After all, the state's paying us to be innovative. But the 3 that are in the application that was awarded to start with are Career Jumpstart, which is focusing on high school and college internships and co-ops with a credential and a completion stipend. And then we have Work-Based Learning, which can take many forms with different employers. How could that look? It can be contextualized learning. It can be part-time shift work while you go to school. There's a lot of ways to do work-based learning, and there's a lot of national trends and models that we're looking at for that with those employers. And then there's apprenticeships. And while we say apprenticeships have been around a long time, and that's true, there are new ways to do apprenticeships. We have healthcare apprenticeships, youth apprenticeships, pre-apprenticeships. So those are the 3 strategies that those 15 employers agreed to pursue.
Are you developing ways to do this? Do they have plans in mind for doing this? Or is this a development grant, or is this an implementation grant? I guess might be the way I want to ask it.
That's a good question. It's an implementation grant. Each of the employers were able to write a specific commitment letter in the application, which again I think made a strong application for us, to say, you know, we are willing to embrace these 1 or 2 strategies, and this is how many people we would touch if we had funding from the state to do so. So very specifically, they were able to commit to what strategy they would want to embrace and how many people they would want to target. And really, the state is looking at exactly what Skill Up says. They want to help employers skill up their workforce. They want to move them up, so they need to have some type of wage increase, and they want to help these employers retain talent. which is what employers want. We have decreasing populations, we need to retain talent. So the focus of it largely is to skill people up, create career pathways that have wage incentives, and to help employers retain talent.
This grant encompasses how large an area? Is this specific to Ivy Tech in this region? Is it specific to the EIRPC region? What kind of area are we talking about that this grant can touch?
There's actually 7 counties, so it goes between, of course, Ivy Tech's across the state. So when we go out of the service region for Richmond, we have counterparts through the other Ivy Techs that would be working with us with those employers. So it's 7 counties going from Randolph down to Union, Wayne, Rush, Henry, Fayette, Shelby. I think I said them all.
Okay.
This is when I worry that I've missed someone. I usually count when I say them.
And I wasn't counting as you were talking, so I can't say whether you missed them all or not, but we get the general idea.
Yes.
And as they do this, the idea, obviously, and the state's been pushing next level jobs and workforce readiness, and all of this is tying in together, one, for jobs that we have here and manufacturers or businesses that we have here, but also the idea is to continue to bring in more businesses to add to the job pool here.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a growth-oriented grant. The state, of course, wants what our employers want. They want to grow and stabilize their workforce and then grow their potential to expand here and to be retained here. So, very exciting.
Are there additional areas of workforce development that you are leaning toward or you are thinking about doing? Obviously, this grant is going to cover a number of different things, but it's never enough. It always seems like we're having to think about, retrain, retool for the next. What comes next? Obviously, as Blue Buffalo begins to open up, a whole nother skill set of people because they're getting into research and development beyond just manufacturing. What's the thought process in workforce development for a facility like that?
Yeah, well, I think you're on the right track. I mean, this type of work will lead towards eventually what Ivy Tech is calling workforce alignment. So within our new organizational structure, we've very purposely embraced the concept of workforce alignment. And while that's part of my title as a function at Ivy Tech, I tell folks within the organization it's really a verb. It's not just what Kim does, it's a verb we all collectively do. So the work that we are doing under these grants and with Manufacturing Matters and the Elite Network really creates a mentality of constantly innovating yourself, constantly looking at career pathways. And I think as we work with partners like Blue Buffalo, who is in the Elite Partnership under the grant, as they grow, their career pathways will grow, and the way that we align the Ivy Tech resources that can meet their workforce needs, whether it's short-term credentials, long-term academic pathways, having a long plan in place instead of a short-term solution really is where we're trying to get employers to think ahead and lay out their strategies going forward.
Okay. Kim Thurlow, thank you very much for spending some time.
Thank you, Eric.
You didn't think we were going to be able to cover that kind of time.
That's right.
I knew it. We'll be back with more In Focus in just a moment. We've got another quick information bit from Phil Quinn.
Hi, Phil Quinn, Marketing Coordinator with Ivy Tech Community College, Richmond and Connersville. Time is running out to register for fall classes at Ivy Tech Richmond and Connersville. Express enrollment events are scheduled for August the 9th and then on August the 11th. These events help you walk through some of the most challenging parts of starting your plan to a completed certificate or degree. During our Express enrollment, you can meet with an advisor, have all your financial aid questions answered, and go ahead and register. Get a head start on your education by RSVPing at ivytech.edu.
Welcome back to In Focus on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11. Unlike other shows this summer, I'm not moving around from location to location in between segments. We're staying put and we're having the guests come to us because the chairs here are just so comfy. And we've got Scott Caldwell, who is instructor extraordinaire, I guess, here at Ivy Tech. Is that where you want to fall?
Some people have used that term. I'm just doing my job, just trying to teach the students and having fun doing what I'm doing. You know, as Chad said, it's a fun place to work. I love what I'm doing. I love the students. I love the content, and it just kind of all clicked with something this year from what some other people were looking at.
Now, Scott is the Glenn Sample Award winner, and I use that name because that name means something locally as far as the award goes, and you're familiar with it because I saw a picture of you in Milton.
Yeah, so Glenn Sample actually grew up just outside of Milton, and so Sample Road that's out there is where their farm was. And then he had moved up to Hamilton County later and raised his family up there, but he was one of the founders of Ivy Tech Community College, and so this award was named after him. And it was really interesting to win this, coming from an agriculture background and having that connection, but then also did the Google Maps thing and found out that my family farm was actually about 14 miles from where he grew up.
Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
So got to talk to his family about that, and then he died back in 1980, and so I was actually able to, after winning the award, I went out and found his gravesite in the stone and was able to take some pictures there and send that to the family as a thank you for their support to Ivy Tech Community College.
Let's start with you. We've gone through a little bit of the setup of this, but let's start with you. Who are you? How did you get into education? How did you find your way to Ivy Tech?
So I grew up in Connersville on the family farm, and my dad taught agriculture and science at Union County High School for about 26 years. And so in the summers, I grew up running the halls of Union County High School and getting to see what my dad did with the FFA and other groups like that. I got into high school at Connersville, was on the speech team, FFA, 4-H, things like that. Went to Purdue, actually planned on going into TV broadcasting.
Okay,
and
you sound like it.
Yeah, and so went to Purdue. The ag communications major was real small. They were threatening to close it down, so I picked up a double major with ag education. Realized I really enjoyed being in the classroom, and so got into teaching, and then taught at a few different schools around, public and private schools both. Had an opportunity to move back to the Connersville area, back around family, back around the church, and all that, and then it was outside of teaching, and then picked up as an adjunct here to get back into the classroom, and opportunities presented themselves to be able to come on full time then.
Nice. For this President's Award is what they call it.
Right.
What's the criteria? How are you nominated? How were you even in the running for this?
So back in January, I was coming to campus and got a call from my dean asking me to stop by and meet with her, and I thought we were doing some program review stuff. And so I was all prepared mentally to talk about that, and she said, I want to nominate you for an award. And it took me by surprise. And so each campus gets to select the President's Award winner, their local winner, in however manner that they want to. And so what Richmond did was each of the deans nominated someone, and we used the same criteria that the state would use to select the Glenn Sample Award winner. So Peg Terrell, my dean, asked me to give a little write-up about myself in those categories so that when they went to the meeting, the committee knew a little bit more about me, and that's how I was selected for the local award winner.
How did you come out to be the guy? Because you were the local award winner,
Right.
but you are also the top instructor in Ivy Tech statewide for 2018.
Yeah, and that was another blind side totally there, where after it was selected as the local, then we went with that criteria, and we were told I may have a portfolio, and it was about 56 pages long.
Wow.
In there with the teaching philosophy statement and all their criteria, and I just answered all the questions about what I do in the classroom, what we're doing in the community, helping the foundation, workforce alignment, all those types of things, and my involvement with different groups around. And then the committee at the Central Office, Systems Office, selected that winner, and it was pretty humbling for me because I knew some of the other nominees. I'd gone to Leadership Academy with one of them. Another one I had been in a play with back in 2000 before I went to grad school, and so had kept up with some of these people. And to watch the videos that were produced of them, it was really neat to see and very encouraging about what all's going on across the state, the excitement that's being generated system-wide in Ivy Tech.
As you accepted this award, did it make you think about how you interact, one, with your peers, but two, with your students?
That was another thing. I've used the word blindsided several times, and it really was, this was nothing that I had aimed for. It was just doing my job. And after I was brought up on stage and they had done the pictures, I was ready to step down, and Sue Elpserman, our president, said, "Stay here, we've got us another surprise." And so I looked up, and one of my students was walking across the back of the auditorium and came up to present an award to me for that. And that meant a lot that my students were a part of it. Another one had come up to watch one of my, our baby while we were in the awards program. The other kids were out with friends and stuff. And so to have those students saying that, and after it got shared by Ivy Tech online and Facebook and stuff, and for former students to come up and mention things meant a lot. And that's really what it's all about, is just putting those students in that right position to be able to succeed. Find out what they want to do, and let's figure out how to get them there.
And I know we were talking to Chad Bolser earlier. He was talking about community. He was talking about student success,
Absolutely.
which seems to be what you're leaning toward on this. How to meet the students where they are, how to figure out where they want to be, where they want to be.
Exactly.
And then putting them in that position.
Yeah, and I think that's the key phrase right there of what we're doing. And so when I meet with students, one of the things that I'm telling them is, look, when you come in, we'll talk about, we'll get you signed up for classes, and I know things are going to change between now and when classes start August 20th, or if you're going to start whatever that's going to be. I said, we're going to sit down and we're going to talk, and I'm going to say, what do you want to do? Where do you want to be? And let's get you there. I'm not just going to teach this stuff. I'm going to be a resource for you. I'm going to find other people who can help you out. If I don't know these things, let's figure out who does and make those connections for you.
Talk about what you're teaching here at Ivy Tech and how that program is continuing to grow, because there's some building going on down at Daniel Hall that probably has something to do with what you're into.
Just a little bit, yeah. So I'm in the agriculture program, the head of that, and what's really neat about agriculture, and what most people don't understand, is they think it's the old cows, sows, and plows concept, the production agriculture, the farming.
I've never heard that.
It's an old FFA saying, I guess. And I'd heard that growing up, and it always stuck with me with the sounds and stuff there. But really, when you look at it, agriculture covers 17% of the jobs in the United States. So nearly 1 out of every 5 jobs. So every food that you eat, the flavors and the packaging, that's food science. That's agriculture. The natural resources, the environment, the hydroponics, the urban gardening, the landscaping, sales, management, precision agriculture using GPS and satellites and drones, all of that is what's involved with not just what you see out in the fields and the tractors and the combines. There's a whole lot more to it. And so we're working with those students to get them prepared for whatever those areas are. And my biggest thing is pushing that agribusiness side of things. As I tell people, you might know how to raise cows and corn, but if you don't know your checkbook, you don't get to do it. If there's no money, you don't get to do what you love to do. And so let's make sure you understand the cash flow and how to communicate with people and how to market that and how to be a salesperson and how to communicate well. And so we're doing that. And now we've got this greenhouse going up that you referenced, 42 by 60 foot greenhouse. And so that's going to be pretty amazing.
What is the plan for inside that greenhouse? Are you growing specific things, and are you growing them in a specific way? Because you mentioned hydroponics.
Right.
And that seems to be something that you're really pushing toward.
Yeah. So we're going to have a mix. So there will be some of the traditional soil growing type of stuff. There's going to be opportunities for students to do research. If they've got an interest in different things, let's get you a little island area here and let you work on that. But we're also going to have hydroponics and aquaponics. So using water, using fish or other aquatic animals for the nutrients for those plants. And when we talked about student success, one of the people that's going to be teaching those classes was a former student of mine who didn't think that you could grow plants without soil.
I heard a story about this person.
Yeah.
Jerry
Stamper.
Yeah.
So if you go down to the Richmond Farmers Markets, you'll see Jerry down there selling with what they raise. But he came from the old school farming background and thought you had to have soil. And so when I mentioned it in a class that he was in, he thought I was lying. And Jerry, just being the guy that he is, not being rude or disrespectful, but wanted to go home and prove me wrong.
Okay.
And he found out not only was I right, but he made a small business out of this and is doing this. And Jerry's really amazing in the fact that he's got such a passion for this that he didn't want to just learn it, but he wants to pass this on to younger people and to spread the ability to be able to raise things in hydroponics and aquaponics and what all that involves. So we're going to have facilities there in the greenhouse where the students, we're going to take some that are commercially built, but we're also going to look and say, okay, what works, what doesn't work out of that? All right, let's tweak these things. How do you do this on your own so you don't have to necessarily spend hundreds or thousands of dollars from a commercial place? Let's find things that you've got laying around that you could easily get at a local store and put that together and have your own unit going.
You talked about growing up, you talked about being involved in FFA. Obviously, that is still going on. Yeah. Are you still connected to the local high schools with their FFA programs or anything of that nature, speech, anything?
Yeah, so I still work with judging speech and debate within Indiana. I work with Newcastle High School and their speech team and judge for them and get to go to a lot of different meets. And work there. I'm involved with 4-H and I judge at several county fairs. And right now, as we're talking, my daughters are down at the Fayette County Fair and getting ready to show rabbits tomorrow. And so we've got projects going on there. I just came from the state fair where I took some of our projects up. So 4-H is still a very big involvement within multiple counties where I can help out. And then as far as the FFA and the agricultural education programs in the high school, we've got a number of dual credit classes that are offered around. So I'm visiting them. We're helping judge FFA contests and coach students, being at state FFA convention, national FFA convention, but also working even with counties in Ohio as well and some of their agriculture programs. Again, going and speaking to those classes, helping judge FFA contests. I've gone and coached some students before they've gone to compete, just being a resource for those teachers. Again, just like I'm being a resource for the students, for student success, I view my job as being a resource for the teachers, for teacher success as well.
Very nice. Scott Caldwell, the Glenn Sample Award winner for Ivy Tech for 2018. Thanks for spending some time. It's
Absolutely.
Great talking to you, but I have to ask, what did you do in speech?
A little bit of everything. My specialty was probably impromptu, so I had 30 seconds to prepare a speech. I did some extemp, 30 minutes to prepare, and I did original oratory as well.
Nice. And you know, I asked because over the last couple of years we've had Richmond High School speech students perform on In Focus, and we'll hopefully continue that. And also, just as a side note, he mentioned Jerry Stamper. Jerry is going to be one of the guests during this upcoming season on In Your Business with Tim Scale, so be looking for that on Tuesday nights on WETV Channel 20. Thanks for spending some time with us.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
We'll be back with more In Focus in just a moment.
17% of the jobs that exist in the United States are somehow agriculture related. I get to train students for nearly 1 out of every 5 jobs that exist. I can tell a student as they're coming in, what do you want to do? Let's get you there.
Scott really has a passion for what he's teaching, and that really helps fire the passion in all of us. I'm passionate about urban agriculture. It's hydroponics. He supplied the hydroponics cart, since we don't have a greenhouse yet, so we could do something that my best friend and I are passionate about.
Scott is very unique. He's there to help anyone, even the old timers.
Jerry would be one of my ultimate success stories. In my introduction to agriculture class, we talked about hydroponics, growing plants with water, without soil. And Jerry, with his background, thought I was lying.
You can't grow stuff in water. It takes soil.
So he went home to prove me wrong.
We built my first system, and I had to back down.
A few $1,000s later, he now has his own hydroponics and aquaponics business. The classes that 3 years ago he thought I was lying about. He has now educated himself enough that he is an expert in this, knows much more than me. And this fall, he's going to be the one teaching our hydroponics and aquaponics classes. That's the really cool thing about Ivy Tech. We take a student, find something that they're curious about. Let's nurture that, play with that, and see where it goes.
He makes sure that you're passionate about whatever you're doing.
Sydney, to see her come in, to get involved, to start to take leadership roles, we laugh, we joke.
And he's always very, very encouraging. I wouldn't be where I am today. I wouldn't be who I am today. I wouldn't have the projects that I'm doing right now if it wasn't for him.
I wouldn't have the aquaponics business. I wouldn't be teaching at Ivy Tech this fall. I can't say enough good about Scotty. I mean, honestly, I can't. He's been a mentor, a go-to person, and a caring person.
Hi, I'm Eric Marsh. Coming up on this month's Access to the Arts, we're going to be at the Richmond Art Museum talking to Lance Crow about Pottery Palooza. We'll find out about some of the events taking place at Richmond Civic Theater, Richmond Civic Hall, and with the Richmond Symphony Orchestra. And we'll continue our conversation with Tom Milligan. Access to the Arts, Thursday nights at 9 p.m. on WETV, Channel 20.
Hi, I'm Sherry Harlan, program host for Read Beside You. Join us when our next guest will be Dr. Anu Bandari from Reed Health's Perioperative Clinic.
A perioperative clinic who looks at the entire sort of pre, intra, and post-op journey of the patient from a medical standpoint.
Join us Thursday, 8 o'clock, Channel 20, WETV.
Thanks for watching this week's In Focus on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11. I want to thank my guests, Chad Bolser, Kim Thurlow, and Scott Caldwell. We greatly appreciate them giving us the time. Remember, if your not-for-profit organization has an event that you want us to know about, be sure to let us know at least 2 weeks ahead of time. Send that information to wctv@iue.edu. Send along a slide of your event, and we'll be happy to get that on the community bulletin board at least, again, give us at least 2 weeks to be able to promote your event. Want to remind you, like we did at the top of the show, that voter registration is open now. You can check your voter registration information at indianavoters.com, indianavoters.com. Check that out. Or if you want to call the clerk's office, 973-9304 or 973-9226. 973-9304, 973-9226. Voter registration ends on the 9th. Remember, you can see replays of this show at 10:30 tonight, also at 8 o'clock tomorrow night, twice on Saturday, 8 a.m. and 9 p.m., and on Sunday at 8 a.m. and 1 p.m. Audio replays of the show are on G1013 and ESPN Radio 100.9 FM. Next week, we'll talk to some of the superintendents from Wayne County Schools. Thanks for watching In Focus. Have a good night.